Hello, everybody. You join me here in Canada. It is very hard to believe, but yeah, it's been a manic few days. I arrived in a few days ago, and I've just taken the time to kind of settle down, get to know everything. But yeah, you join me in my makeshift little studio with my new Blue Jays cap. Um, and my almost broken speaker. So, yeah, loads of things to talk about today. If you were expecting a live stream, you were expecting right. Unfortunately, a few things have happened, and I can't actually live stream or mobile live stream anyway. So, yeah, a bit annoying there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to live stream at all throughout this entire trip. I hope to rectify it, but I genuinely don't know if it's possible or not. So, we'll see, but yeah, at the moment it's not looking very likely. So you are all probably wondering how I am doing, and I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. Maybe you weren't wondering that, but there you go. So yesterday I put a poll onto my YouTube channel asking you guys what I should talk about because a lot has happened in the last few days, and I don't have enough time to cover it all in one video. So we're going to start off with one in particular, and we're going to start off with the flight because loads of you were asking how the flight was, how the journey over here was. So the flight itself was 7.5 hours, which honestly isn't that bad. It was only meant to be 7, but we were delayed a little bit, uh, leaving out of Dublin. Customs, security, everything through Dublin was absolutely fine. One great thing, and I actually might be able. No, I'm not going to show. I'm not going to move the camera, but I'm actually recording all of this audio on a brand new microphone. I might do a video on it a little bit later. But yeah, I bought this kind of. I actually, it's an aux microphone that you can plug into a camera or plug into a phone. And I thought that's really good because for live streaming and for recording, sound or the IndyCar engines, that's going to be really, really handy. Except my phone doesn't have an aux jack, and I forgot about that. So yeah, that was interesting. So I thought, well, surely there has to be some kind of cable that goes from aux to USB-C. So I looked online, and there was. And I went into Staples the following morning after I arrived here in Canada, and sure, there we go. In Staples, there was one just sitting on the shelf. So I picked that up, and hopefully it is all working, and hopefully you can hear me a little bit clearer. It's a little bit echoey in this room, and my voice is a little bit shot, I will admit. So that was the flight. Now, I want to talk actually a little bit about the ArriveCan app and immigration into Canada, because if you don't know what you're doing, if it's your first time, if it's the first time you're traveling alone, it might be a little bit scary or confusing, or yeah, you just might get a little flustered. So I do want to talk about that briefly. So once you touch down into Canada and you get off the plane, everything like that, you go immediately to kind of security and customs. So at the gate, you will have your passport checked, which is pretty much standard. But then you'll go to customs. Now, I use this thing called ArriveCan, and it is an app that you can download. It's done by the Canadian government, and essentially, you have to submit a customs declaration. It's also worth saying that if you're traveling to Canada on a non-Canadian passport, you'll need not. It's basically a visa. It's called an ETA. You'll have to apply for that. I applied for it. I got it within like 5 seconds of clicking. I think I have to pay like $5 to get it. It really isn't that bad, and that's valid for an entire year. So even if you need to come back to Canada, your ETA is there. But the ETA is one thing, and your customs declaration is another. So with the customs declaration, you can either just travel into Canada as usual, and then wait with you and the 300 other people on your flight to get a computer. There's only about maybe, I don't know, 10 computers in the little arrive hall. And if there's another flight coming in the same time as you, that might be a bit, hectic. So you might have to wait a little while waiting for a computer. You have to have your passport out, you have to have all your things, and you have to fill out a whole lot of documents. Or you can do it 3 days before, up to 72 hours before you arrive into Canada. Not when your flight leaves, when you arrive into Canada, when you touch down. So I did it the day before I went on the flight, and I have to honestly say it was really really handy. It took 5-10 minutes to fill out this little form, basically saying, are you bringing drugs? Are you bringing alcohol? Are you bringing this, that, and the other, knives or whatever? And if you're clicking yes to one of them, like cannabis, you're probably gonna have an issue. You're probably gonna get stopped in customs because it's not quite illegal over here, but you know what security is like. So you do all of them, and then it's sent away. So once you get into Canada and you show your passport and all the rest of it, and you go down to customs, you can actually use a thing called an express lane. There's like 5 or 6 of these express lanes, and all you literally do is just scan your passport and you agree to a few things, and away you go. It's literally that simple. You get a little kind of receipt thing that you show to a few other people, but essentially that's about it, and it's super super handy. So I cannot stress enough that the ArriveCan app is a really really good way. If you're just a little bit tech savvy, it's really really helpful. I thought it was great. It saved me loads of time. I actually spent more time waiting at the baggage carousel than I did in customs. That is how ridiculously simple everything was. Everybody was very nice, everybody was very helpful, and yeah, it was really really comfortable. So I would really really, if you're going to Canada, get the ArriveCan app. So once you're into Canada, obviously you have to go and get your bags and rental car and stuff, and all that is fairly good. The next thing that we people wanted to talk about was the weather, because I'm Irish, as you guys know now at this point, and in Ireland the weather isn't that great, but it has been lovely up to recently. So when I arrived in, the weather was absolutely lovely, but then the following day, the weather turned, and I'm not sure if you guys are keeping up to date with what the weather's like in kind of New York and in Canada, but there's a lot of forest fires, especially around Quebec. It's where all those fires are. But the way the winds work and the way the weather works here, because obviously I this is my opinion. I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist, whatever. But I think because it was raining pretty heavily the night I arrived, and then that put out some fires. I think an awful lot more smoke was generated, and that blew over to Canada. So it was really really weird. The air quality was deemed like high risk. It was dangerous. It's actually like that again today. Yesterday it was lovely. It was really really nice. I got out and had a cycle. I went for a run. It was really, really nice. But yeah, smoke for 2 of the last 3 days has been pretty bad. Um, it's deemed like unhealthy. You should be, in theory, you should be wearing face masks when you go outside. So yeah, obviously you read about these things, and it's not as severe as, like, I know a few people down in New York were like, it's orange stuff. It's not like that. You can see maybe 2, 3, 400 meters, but then it is like smoke. The best way to describe it is it looks like a really kind of mild fog. But yeah, it is a little strange because like that is smoke, and it's micro dust is the issue. So yeah, very very interesting and something I've never seen before. Thankfully, in Canada, basically every house has air conditioning, so if you just chuck that on, you'll be fine. Um, Whether the flight. So So obviously, even in the short few days that I've been here, I've gotten to talk to a few people, and this is something I'm going to be keeping you guys up to date on throughout my journey. But obviously, I'm over here thinking, could I live in Toronto? Is it possible? What's it like? What sacrifices will I have to make? Well, I got talking to a few people in a pub 2 days ago, and we were talking about house prices, and it really does seem like Dublin and Toronto are, I think, more similar than people think. House prices in Toronto are absolutely astronomical at the moment. I drove through 2 or 3 different districts, or kind of like places in the suburbs of Toronto. It's actually not classed as Toronto. It's classed as like Mississauga, Oakville kind of area, and kind of the best way I can describe it is it's like Dublin 4 or Chelsea in London. You're paying for the postcode. So I drove through countless, like, essentially they're housing estates, but there's laws in Canada where each house cannot look exactly the same. They have to be different both inside and out, which I think is actually pretty cool. But yeah, all of these, there must have been like 5,000 houses in like two of these estates that I drove past, one either side, and all of those properties were at least 1.3 million Canadian dollars or over. Some were like 2.5 million. I haven't gone to like a real estate agent window or something like that. I haven't looked at that kind of stuff yet, but it was crazy to think that every single house in the housing estate is over $1 million, sometimes 2, even 3 million, depending how they're furnished. Um, which is pretty mad because okay, yeah, it's three stories, so you have your basement, your first floor, your second floor. In terms of floor space, it's not any real different than any kind of housing estate in Ireland would be. Obviously, then you have the basement, which sure will give you an awful lot more floor space, but it's pretty manic to think that all of these people have paid, well, maybe not back then, but now they're paying 1 million, $2 million dollars for essentially what is a housing estate house. It's nothing really special. It's kind of templated. So initially, my thoughts were, okay, if I buy a house here, $1.3 million is about €1 million. So I think the best way to describe it is a million is like 700,000. So whatever, let's say it's a million, take 30%. If it's $1 million Canadian or $10, then take just under 30% off, and that is essentially what it costs in euro. So a million is 700,000 euro. 1.3 million is maybe just slightly over €1 million. And although there are a lot of prices, or a lot of houses, I should say, in Ireland that cost €1 million, there's never that amount of them in that density. And the thing is, it's pretty wild that these housing estates go on for miles. I saw them from the plane, and it actually was the first thing that kind of got me questioning. Downtown Toronto is actually quite small. There's only a handful of like skyscrapers that I could see from the plane. I'm sure there are more, but there was a little district there. But for as far as the eye can see, it was either housing estates, factories, or offices. There are so many offices. It is really clear to see why Toronto is called the business capital of Canada, because it is. It is just business, business, business. And it honestly is quite incredible. So, although a lot of money is probably made around here for sure, it is still quite interesting to think that there is that much amount of money in this economy. So yeah, initially house prices in Toronto seem pretty unaffordable. Um, about the same, if not worse, than Ireland. But one thing I will say is it's probably a little harsh to compare Ireland and Dublin to Toronto, because everything is on a much bigger scale over here. There is an awful lot more things to do. Even if you take a 5 kilometer kind of radius in Dublin, it's going to be an awful lot less populated, an awful lot less dense, I think is the best word to say, with like shops and different things to do, amenities, than, let's just say, Oakville would, or Mississauga, or somewhere around there. It is, everything over here is on a just much, much bigger scale. And to be honest with you, that is a severe understatement. I took a little cycle yesterday. I got on a bike, took a bit of a cycle, and what was incredible, I was literally just in a housing estate, essentially, and there were like proper cycle lanes and stuff, just kind of in this housing estate, I should say, or these kind of little link roads in between them. So, yeah, it is really interesting to think just how much bigger everything is over here. Even when it's down to the roads or the cars or the trucks, especially, there's so many big rigs around here. You only see them in movies, or the school buses even. It is quite crazy to think. So my first impressions of Canada, everything is on a much, much bigger scale. I haven't really been into too many stores. I can't really say price-wise what things are like. What I will say is I've bought a new suit for something that I'm going to very soon, and I think the price was actually pretty fair considering what I bought. So yeah, I think overall, I think things in Canada are a little bit cheaper in the food wise and the clothing wise. Um, but I'll have to kind of see more on that before I can kind of develop a full-fledged opinion on that yet. Anyways, guys, that's where I'm going to wrap it up. This is a little video just to kind of tide yous over because I haven't obviously posted since I got over here. I'm going to work on a fix for the live stream. I probably won't be live streaming tomorrow or the following day after that, so it'll be next week before I am live streaming. But I will keep you guys up to date as always. So yeah, if you enjoyed this type of stuff, let me know what you want me to talk about, because this is just um, a short little video, essentially, just talking about what I would have talked about live on stream without the engagement. So yeah, I will try work on a fix. Until then, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week with more Canadian related material. So thank you very much for watching. Take care, and goodbye.